Ayatollah Khamenei tweeted almost every day, "Death to Israel."
Whom should we surrender to? Iran is not a nation to surrender.
You don't know. I may do it. I may not do it. I mean, nobody knows what I'm going to do.
Amid the volatile situation in West Asia, the UNSC is set to convene an emergency meeting on the rapidly evolving situation. Let me go across to my colleague Hem Kaur Saroya, who has all the details.
Thank you so much, Diksha. Today, the United Nations Security Council will hold an emergency open briefing on the ongoing hostilities between Iran and Israel. The meeting requested by Iran was backed by Algeria, China, Pakistan and Russia. UN nuclear watchdog IAEA's Director General Rafael Moreno Grossi will be among the requested briefers here. Natanz nuclear enrichment facility was among the initial targets hit by the Israeli strikes. In his briefing at the UNSC on the 13th of June emergency meeting, Grossi said that the strikes had damaged the facility's above-ground pilot fuel enrichment plant, as well as its power supply. Now, he initially said there was no indication of direct damage to the underground enrichment plant, but the UN agency later reported that analysis of satellite imagery had identified additional elements that indicate direct impact on the underground facilities. On the 16th of June, Grossi reported that 4 buildings at the Isfahan Nuclear Research Complex had been damaged. That included Central Chemical Laboratory, Uranium Conversion Plant, Tehran Reactor Fuel Manufacturing Plant, and an under-construction metal processing facility. Now, significant uranium stockpiles are believed to be stored around the Isfahan site. The IAEA DG said external radioactivity at both Natanz and Isfahan nuclear sites remained at normal levels. Apart from that, Fordo enrichment plant, Iran's most deeply buried enrichment site, dug into a mountain, has also reportedly been targeted by Israel. But Grossi reiterated on Monday that the site suffered no visible damage. On the 18th of June, then, the UN nuclear watchdog said Israeli military strikes hit 2 facilities in Iran that made parts for centrifuges, the machines that enrich the uranium. The IAEA identified them as the Tisa Karaj Workshop and the Tehran Research Center. On the 19th of June, the Israeli army said it struck an inactive nuclear reactor in Iran's Arak during overnight raids. The strike included the structure of the reactor's core seal, which is a key component in plutonium production. The Arak Heavy Water Research Reactor is situated on the outskirts of the Khondab village. The IAEA said it has information that key buildings at the Khondab Heavy Water Research Site, including the distillation unit, were damaged in Israeli strikes. Now, earlier the agency had ruled out any radiological effects after the strike. This is what we know so far. Back to you, Diksha.
Right, thank you so much, Aim, for getting us that report. And now for more on this, we're being joined live by Dr. Paul Doffman. He's a scholar at the University of Sussex and the chair of Nuclear Consulting Group. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us on the broadcast on WION World is One.
Thank you.
Doctor, help us understand in detail what can we expect from the UNSC emergency open briefing meeting, and especially during the ongoing hostilities between Iran and Israel, when neither of the side is actually willing to back down or there's no sign of de-escalation on the horizon?
I suppose it's difficult to say. It seems clear that Israel has incentivized the US to join in. Presumably Trump won't be especially happy about that. Some of the key issues are about radiation pollution. There were reports that Bushehr, which is Iran's major only nuclear power plant, was hit by Israeli forces, but Israel then said no, they haven't hit Bushehr. Presumably Saudi and all of the other Gulf states are very concerned about this, because if there is significant radiological contamination from a hit on Bushehr, that would contaminate the Gulf. The Arabian Sea, the Persian Sea. Now, the Persian Sea is about, it's almost entirely enclosed very low. It's about 35 meters deep, very low turnover. And the Gulf states, Bahrain, Kuwait, Iraq, Iran, Oman, Qatar, Saudi, UAE, all depend on the Gulf for desalination drinking water. So presumably Saudi would be lobbying the US quite strongly not to hit the Bushehr nuclear power plant. The other major concern is if the Tehran Research Center has been hit, because unlike other facilities, it may well contain contaminants, radiological contaminants, that would be a significant problem to at least the local and potentially the regional population. So in general, as usual, it's not a pretty picture. It looks like the sides are beginning to step back, but other than that, I'm not sure what else to say.
Right, Dr. Doffman, and a New York Times report citing US intelligence official warns that Tehran may move forward towards building a nuclear bomb if Washington actually gets involved in the fight or if Iran's supreme leader is assassinated. Now, given those circumstances, with Iran also threatening to shut down the Strait of Hormuz, which is very strategically located at this point, the conflict seems to be treading on thin ice. And now, having said all of that, Operation Rising Lion, do you think it's going to end up provoking exactly the opposite result of what it had intended to do when it started with the preemptive strikes?
I suppose the question is, can you bomb your way out of nuclear proliferation? And it looks almost... It could be one of the answers to that is that you can potentially move the 440 kilograms of 60% enriched uranium. One can rebuild centrifuges. It's difficult to understand how far either Israel or the US thinks that within a number of months, within a number of years, these forms of production can't be reinitialized. In terms of the Israeli stated aims of engaging with bomb production, one of the key issues here is Fordo nuclear complex, which is 80 to 90 meters below ground. Now we know that the only thing that can possibly reach that are the US bunker busting bombs. They have a penetration about 61 meters deep, so you'd need maybe one or two, maybe more bombs to even approach finishing off these facilities. And if that doesn't work, then what? Tactical nuclear weapons? But the idea of the US actually entering into a Middle Eastern war, with all of the implications that it has, seem quite distressing.
Absolutely, Dr. Doffman. And while we have you with us, we know that the primary goal of Operation Rising Lion has been to eliminate the existential threat that Iran's nuclear capability poses to Israel. Now, Netanyahu has categorically reiterated the claim that Israel will keep going on for as long as it takes. Now, just how long can Israel realistically sustain its offensive against Iran with the US now on the horizon of actually getting involved? What's your take on that? How long could it actually sustain? And also, what about Iran on the other hand? How long do you think that Iran can keep going on?
One needs to look at history here just to give it context. I mean, pre-2019, before Trump pulled out of the JPOA, the interstate agreement, US, Iran, and Europe, there was about 150 kilograms of uranium, which is a very small amount, enriched to about 3.7%, which is only the form of enrichment you would need for civil reactors, in other words, non-military. Now, once Trump pulled out of that agreement, we know what's happened. So this needs to be placed in the context of what's happened in the last few years or so. In terms of the ongoing war, one understands that it's looking like a trench war. And one of the key issues are likely to be the numbers of defense weapons that either state has, and crucially, the number of ballistic weapons that Iran has. And one understands that Iran has a significant number of ballistic missiles.
Right. Thank you so much, Dr. Doffman, for joining us on the broadcast and sharing your perspective with us.
Thank you.